Welcome back. The Missouri gubernatorial race is in a dead heat with the Democratic state auditor taking on Republican incumbent Governor Mike Parson. This close election comes amid a pandemic, renewed calls for racial justice, and a struggling economy. So, joining us now is the Democratic candidate, Nicole Galloway. Nicole, great to have you on. We're less than 100 days from the election. What is your strategy with this race being so close right now?
In a state like Missouri, you fight for every single vote. And I know that the issues that folks care about the most matter to families across the state, and that includes health care. COVID-19 has further exposed how Governor Parson's priorities have been wrong for Missouri families. Even before this deadly pandemic, Missouri was in the top 15 states nationally in uninsured residents. And because of the pandemic, it's estimated that another 100,000 Missourians have lost their health insurance coverage. Our rural hospitals are closing at an alarming rate. And folks know we are just not going to succeed as a state unless we have access to affordable health care. The governor's record of refusing to expand healthcare access to working families is exactly the wrong approach, and folks want a new way.
You've been critical of the governor's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Specifically, what is he doing wrong, and what would you do if you were elected?
Look, people want clear, direct, factual communication about what is happening with the pandemic, what is happening right now, and what the plan is. They are not getting that from Governor Parson. Take the instance of wearing masks. Governor Parson comes to the defense of those that do not wear a mask. I would encourage folks to wear a mask because we know that it can slow the spread of the virus, it protects the public health, and it saves our jobs. It will open up our economy. The governor doesn't seem to understand that we're in an economic crisis caused by a public health crisis. And until we get the public health crisis under control, we'll never be able to get to a more normal state, which would include opening schools this fall.
What is your stance on schools? That's issue number one for so many parents. Do you think schools in your state should be open for in person learning in the fall?
Look, I am a mom of school age kids. I am eager for us to return to in person schools. It would help in our economic recovery so parents can get back to work, but also our kids need this. They learn better in person. The issue here is that Governor Parson has such a cavalier and cruel attitude about school openings. He's taken President Trump's approach that schools should open no matter what the underlying conditions of the coronavirus are in our state. And it's stunning to hear him say that when kids go back to school, they're going to get COVID and they're just going to go home and they're going to get over it. Many kids will not get over it. They're not going to be fine. And his comments ignore the risks to teachers, to staff, to bus drivers, to parents, to caregivers. We need a plan that is directly sets clear criteria on where communities need to be on transition, on positivity, and on containment for schools to safely reopen. Again, I think we all share that we want schools to open. We just want them to do that safely.
So New York has set, a kind of a guideline saying that if cases stay below 5%, schools can reopen. If they go above 9%, they need to close. Is that what, does that kind of make sense to you?
That clear criteria does need to be set. And what's happening here in Missouri is that cases are rising in every region of our state. We are trending in the wrong direction. And we have a very limited window of opportunity to reopen our schools and stay on track with that because cases continue to rise and cases continue to spread. That's why we need to slow the spread of the virus. We need to encourage folks to wear masks. We have to keep our numbers down so we can minimize the risk to students, to teachers, to school and staff. We also need a plan for PPE. We need a plan for sanitation. We need expert public health advice helping schools reopen. We've had months to prepare this, and we still have a long way to go. School opening this fall is just right around the corner.
Switching gears, we've seen huge protests in the wake of George Floyd's death. There's calls to defund the police, to just revamp criminal justice in general. What are your thoughts? Any concrete things that you could point to that need to be done to remedy this racial inequity that we see in this country?
First of all, the killing of George Floyd has opened up painful wounds that Missourians are very familiar with. And what I hear from the protests is people are tired of talk, they want action. That's why I laid out an opportunity agenda for Black Missourians that includes criminal justice reform. I want to be clear, I don't support defunding the police. I support giving law enforcement the tools they need to fulfill their primary public safety mission. Our law enforcement officers do challenging work and they need the support of our community. But we're never going to have community trust in our law enforcement officers unless there is accountability, unless there is oversight. And that's why I put out this plan that includes not just criminal justice reform, but a comprehensive reform to address the issues from what I have heard from the protesters and community leaders.
We have seen huge spikes in violent crime across this country in just the past couple of months. What do you think is behind it, and what would you do to stop it?
There is no one disputes that we have a violent crime crisis, that our homicide rates, they are rising, and that gun violence is on the rise. And I've been clear about what I think should happen on those issues. We need to limit the availability of firearms and the ability of criminals to access firearms. Unfortunately, the agenda in Missouri and Jefferson City continues to do the same old plan over and over and over again, and it's not working. Homicides continue to be on the rise, particularly gun violence that involves children. This is not acceptable. The governor has called a special session to deal with crime. However, it doesn't get to the root causes of why someone picks up a gun and uses it in the first place. It deals with issues only on the back end. So keeping guns out of the hands of violent criminals is important, but also we need to lift up communities that are impacted by gun violence, economic opportunity, economic empowerment, access to healthcare, access to good education. So folks have hope in these communities that things can be better and that we won't continue down the same path over and over again.
All right, Nicole Galloway, Missouri State Auditor and the Democratic candidate for governor. Really great to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much for coming on.